Okay, get into your notes where we're talking about the GI Bill of Rights. GI Bill of Rights. So get into your notes for the GI Bill of Rights. Okay? Brady, tell me one thing that the GI Bill of Rights provided for veterans of foreign wars. Better way to say that would be government loans for veterans to purchase homes. Okay? Government loans for veterans to purchase homes. So highlight that in your... Hunter, what's another thing it did?
Low interest government loans for businesses or farms.
Right, government loans for veterans to start a business or a farm. Delaney? Pensions and hospital care for veterans. Just so you know what pensions are, they get so much a month, like retirement, for the rest of their life. Okay, that's a pension. Okay, it's retirement. Hospital care would be like VA hospitals that veterans can go to for free or for a very minimal charge and get checked out. Okay, and Michaela, what's the last thing the GI Bill of Rights provided?
It provided government money for veterans wanting to finish high school or college.
Right, finish high school or attend college. Very good. Government money for veterans to attend or finish high school or college. You need to know all of those for tomorrow if you're going to be able to get the multiple choice question correct. There'll be one multiple choice question on the GI Bill of Rights. Okay? There will be one multiple choice question on the National Security Act of 1947, so let's make sure we know that. Okay, Emily, what's the first thing the National Security Act of 1947 did?
It revamped the Department of Defense. But we
What-
know what it will, today it says that it was known as the Department of War.
Okay, it actually revamped the Department of War, and what it did is it created the Department of Defense. So no longer do you have a Department of War, it's now the Department of Defense. That's the first thing it did. Kellyanna, what's the next thing it did?
23
Before that?
The Secretary of Defense.
The law appointed a Secretary of Defense within the President's Cabinet. Okay? The law appointed a Secretary of Defense within the President's Cabinet. We did not have a Secretary of Defense prior to that. Okay, Tristan, what's the next thing it did?
It appointed the Secretary of Defense's 3 assistants.
Which were?
The Secretary of the Army, Navy, and Air Force.
Very good. The law appointed 3 assistants to the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of the Army, Secretary of the Navy, and Secretary of the Air Force. So again, there will be one multiple choice question on the National Security Act of 1947. Okay, move on to the Taft-Hartley Act of 1947. There will be one multiple choice question about it, the Taft-Hartley Act of 1947. Okay, Kezia, what's the first thing it did? Well, what did it do overall?
Try to reduce the power of an organized labor.
Yeah, now let me explain that to you. If you try to reduce the power of organized labor, you're trying to reduce the power of labor unions, make them less effective. Okay, increasing the power of organized labor would be giving labor unions more power. This act wanted to reduce the power of labor unions across the country. And there's 3 ways they did that. Okay, Taylor, give me one.
Restricted the money a labor union contributes to political campaigns.
Very good. Restricted the amount of money that unions could contribute to a political campaign. Because before that, you know, the Teamsters Union might say to a candidate, boy, we'll really stuff your basket full of money in exchange for you doing this for the Teamsters Union when you get elected. Truman saw that as corrupt, and so they wanted to limit the number of money that unions could contribute to political campaigns. Okay, Lauren, what else did it do?
Allowed employers injunctions against striking
Very good. Allowed employers injunctions against striking
employees.
employees. In other words, it was a judicial order that prohibited employees from violating their signed contract. In other words, they signed a contract to work, an injunction said you cannot go on strike, you're violating your contract. And if you do, we will fire you. Okay? And what's the last thing it did, Siobhan?
All employees have the same time on this.
Okay, required all employees of labor unions and the union leaders to sign non-communist oaths. Not only all employees that work for a labor union, but also the union leaders had to sign non-communist oaths. There will be a multiple choice question on that. Okay, let's go to Truman's Fair Deal. Go to Truman's Fair Deal because there will be a question on that as well. Truman's Fair Deal. That was the name of his administration. Okay? Cherith, tell me one thing that Truman's Fair Deal did that was beneficial to the American people.
Extended social security benefits to 10 million more people.
Very good. Laws were passed that extended social security benefits to include 10 million more people. Casey, my dear, what's another thing it did?
When a minimum wage went from 40 cents to 70 cents.
Went from 40 cents to 75 cents an hour. Very good, almost doubled. Okay? Ivan, how about another thing it did?
So allowed to create slum areas.
To create slum areas?
Yeah, or no, like allowed slum areas to create 800,000 new units in common houses.
Okay, you're close, but don't get messed up there and say the opposite. Laws were passed that authorized the federal government to clear slum areas.
Slum areas.
Yeah, clear slum areas and build 800,000 low-income housing units. Okay, again, laws were passed that authorized the federal government to clear slum areas and build 800,000 low-income housing units. And Caitlin, what's the last thing it did? Well, yeah, it extended the civil service. An example of that was the CCC. It didn't extend the CCC. The Civilian Conservation Corps was an example of civil service. But what it did is it passed laws that brought more employees under civil service, which was first initiated by President Roosevelt's New Deal. It brought jobs out for people under civil service. So there will be a multiple choice question on President Truman's Fair Deal. Now, go to the next subtopic, which is concern over internal security and communism in the United States. There will be a multiple choice question on that. And I would just ask Elise, how many federal employees were investigated between 1947 and 1952? How many did the government investigate for possible communist ties? More than 3 million. Very good. Of those 3 million that were investigated, how many resigned, Maddie, before they were fired, basically?
2,000.
Approximately 2,000. Okay? And Pete, of the more than 3 million federal employees that had been investigated, how many were fired? 212. Okay, perfect. That's what you need to know on that particular question. Okay, let's go to Truman's profile. We're going to have a couple on that as well. Morgan, give me one thing that Harry Truman did after high school graduation, but prior to World War I. After high school graduation, but prior to World War I. What did he do? Give me one thing he did. The time he graduated from high school until World War I. One thing. What's that?
He tried to enlist in West Point.
There you go. He failed to get into West Point. Very good. Because of his eyesight. Okay, Olivia, give me another thing he did during that time in his life.
Can I give you one of his jobs?
Yeah.
Okay, he was a timekeeper for Santa Fe Railway.
Very good. Very good. Sage, give me another thing he did between that time.
He worked in the mailroom of the Kansas City Star.
Very good. Kendra, give me another thing he did during that time.
He worked on his family farm for 11 years.
He worked on his family farm. Very good. JC, what else did he do?
Him and his friends started their oil drilling company.
Very good. And we'll piggyback off of Morgan because he did volunteer for the Army prior to World War I. Okay? So you need to know several things that he did between the time that he graduated from high school and the start of World War I. Okay? All right. Considering his political career, Dane, tell me one political position that he served in during his political career.
He was on the U.S. Senate for 14
He
years.
served in the United States Senate. Very good. Dalton, how about another one? Another political position he served during his life.
He served as a county judge.
He served as a county judge of Jackson County, Missouri. Yep, that's another position he held. Macklin, how about another political position he held? Don't overthink this.
He saved, somebody that saved 15.
Well, he did that in the Senate, but where did he, after he served as a senator, what's the next position he held? Well, he was President of the United States, and he was also Vice President of the United States. So make sure you know his political positions, okay? Okay, the rest of this is going to deal with the election of 1948, the rest of these multiple choice. So I'm going to ask Caitlin to answer this question for me. During the election of 1948, who did the States' Rights Party support for president? During the election of 1948, who did the States' Rights Party support for president? Very good. Governor J. Strom Thurmond of South Carolina. Okay, Emily, during the election of 1948, who did the Progressive Party support for president?
Hubert H. Humphrey. I was just reading off the thing.
Yeah, nice guess, way off. So here we go again. During the election of 1948, who did the Progressive Party support for president?
Former Vice President, I don't know.
You got it. Let's hear it.
I didn't write it down.
What?
Well, I wrote Hubert H. Humphrey and then I crossed it out, so I was right.
Okay. Help her out, Kellyanne. Who was that former vice president?
Is it Henry A. Wallace?
Henry A. Wallace. He served under Franklin Roosevelt. Yep. Okay. Casey, my dear, during the election of 1948, who did the Republican Party support for vice president?
Thomas E. Dewey.
Thomas C. Dewey. Very good. Okay. Olivia, during the election of 1948, the man whose speech upset Southern Democratic delegates was? Who was the senator that spoke on civil rights that caused the Southern Democrats to walk out the door? Emily Wheeler?
Hubert H. Humphrey.
Yep, Senator Hubert H. Humphrey of Minnesota. And JC, during the election of 1948, the man who challenged Thomas Dewey for the Republican nomination for president was who?
Robert Taft.
Senator Robert Taft of Ohio. Very good. Those are your multiple choice questions. You notice the last ones are going to have one specific answer. The first ones are going to have, you're going to have to think a little. Okay? All right, let's go to short answer. Macklin, by September of 1950, how far had North Korean forces pushed South Korean forces back into South Korea? By September of 1950, how far had North Korean forces pushed South Korean forces back into South Korea?
They were pushed down into the corner down in Busan.
Busan. P-U-S-A-N. Busan is the exact right answer. Perfect. Now, these football players are hoping like crazy I don't ask them a question since they didn't get on the website to get this figured out. Right, Jeffries? I'm going to try you. Okay, here you go, Jeffries. By mid-September of 1950, where did General Douglas MacArthur and American military forces stage their famous amphibious attack?
On,
Incheon. Very good. Incheon. Now, we're going to watch a video today. We're going to watch a video today that tells you just how big a risk that was for MacArthur. You'll need to pay attention to that. So by mid-September of 1950, where did General Douglas MacArthur and American military forces stage their famous amphibious attack? Incheon. Nice. Ivan?
yes, sir.
Because of General MacArthur's brilliant strategy, in mid-September 1950, where had the North Korean army been pushed back by October 1st?
38 parallel.
Very good, the 38th parallel, yeah. Sage, we're on a roll here now, dear, don't let us down. What specific promise did General MacArthur quote to the President when Truman expressed concern over Chinese involvement in the Korean conflict? What was his quote? What specific promise did General MacArthur quote to the President when Truman expressed concern over Chinese involvement in the Korean conflict? Promised what?
We'll have the boys back by Christmas.
Have the boys home by Christmas. Very good. He promised to have the boys home by Christmas. Okay, Maddie, I want you to kind of briefly explain why China entered the Korean conflict.
So China told the US if you go near the Yalu River, which is the border between China and North Korea.
Very good.
That they were going to be upset, and basically that they were going to start a war with us outside of North Korea.
Okay, close. They just said they would respond with force. They didn't really start a war. But she's right. The Chinese stated that if UN troops or US troops got close to the Yalu River, which was the border between China and North Korea, they would respond with force. Okay? And so to answer the rest of that question, what's the answer? We did get close to the Yalu River and they responded with 200,000 troops. I would make sure you added that. Okay? So the answer would be, briefly explain why China entered the Korean conflict, because they gave fair warning to the UN and the United States that if they approached the Yalu River, which was the border between China and North Korea, they would respond. They responded when we approached that river with 200,000 troops. Okay? All right. Elise, give me one specific issue that General Douglas MacArthur and President Harry S. Truman disagreed on that led to MacArthur's campaign for his cause against the president. What's one thing they disagreed on? Okay, but that's what I'm looking for. What are the two things he wants? Okay, he wants to use the atomic bomb on not only Korea, but China if necessary. That was one thing. He wanted to use the atomic bomb not only on Korea, but China if necessary. Okay, what was the next thing, Lauren, that was maybe a little less radical that he and the president disagreed with? He wanted to commit what? Before the bomb. If he couldn't win by doing this, then we're going to use the bomb. Massive what? Troops. He wanted to commit massive troops to Korea to win the war. No substitute for victory. We can't win the war by having massive troop commitment, then we'll drop the damn atomic bomb on Korea, and if China gets in the way, we'll drop it on them too. That was it. That was the two things that they disagreed on that led to MacArthur's campaign for his cause against the president. Now, I want to ask you this question. What led to MacArthur's firing? Taylor, what led to his firing? You were gone Friday, weren't you, dear? You were here? Okay. What led to his firing? Why did Truman fire him? Specifically, why did he fire him?
Because he said no matter what, he should go against the president.
No. That's, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. But why did he fire him? He appealed over the president's head to Congress. That's why he fired him. He didn't fire him because he wanted to use the atomic weapon. He didn't fire him because he wanted to commit massive troops in Korea. They disagreed on that, which led to him going to Congress and appealing to Congress over the president's head. That's why he fired him. It's because he went to Congress and appealed over the president's head. Now, who was just answering the other one that I said hold on? Emily, I'll let you do this, okay? So how did President Truman justify his actions in firing the popular general?
You should never go behind the president.
No, you said it better the first time.
Oh gosh, maybe you should just let me answer the
You were up. Tristan, help her out. How do you
no
justify
matter
his...
who you are, you should not something the president. Go over.
Think of this guy. Okay, no matter, he stated that no general no matter how popular, could be allowed to trump decisions made by the President of the United States. Okay? He said no general, no matter how popular, could be allowed to trump decisions made by the President of the United States. Okay, now I want you to think about this a little bit tomorrow, because there are 20 answers to this test, which means they're going to be worth 5 points apiece. So you better have a clue, because it wouldn't take you long not to get a very good grade on this. Now, listen to me carefully. When you read these multiple choice questions, here's how I would do it. Blah, 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 blah. A. If A is correct, keep that in mind. B. That isn't right. C. Yeah, that's right. The answer then would be A and C above. So as you read the question, these higher level multiple choice questions, read it and then read the first one. Is that correct? If it is, kind of note it. Is the next one correct? If it is, kind of note it. If the next one's correct, no, note that. And then look what your choices are. Because these are going to be, first 5, or first 6 are going to be higher level questions, where there's going to be more than one answer possibly. Okay? So you have to pay attention. Does that mean there might not only be one answer? No. But you need to read through them to make sure that the statement is either true or not after each A, B, C, or D. Okay? All right, we're going to watch a short on Douglas MacArthur. I want you to write down anything that I didn't tell you about Douglas MacArthur in this video, please.